Hello and welcome to Politics. Today I am Farrukh Pitafi. Once again we are going to focus on Pakistan's domestic politics. And of course one has to start with this sad incident that took place in Quetta, where a suicide bomber actually struck. But the government of Pakistan, the state of Pakistan, is taking care of the matter. Hopefully, but this will not become a thing in coming days. But that is not all. While I've given you a bad news, or I have just reported that, let me also highlight certain good things that are happening. In Pakistan, the macroeconomic stabilization, especially because of revenue collection, has been a big concern. And repeatedly we have heard that there are shortfalls. So the good news at this moment is that the FBR in its collections has surpassed the target of March 2021. The target was 439 billion rupees, and it has achieved actually 475 billion rupees. That is 108% of what was actually marked, what exactly was the target. And then in 9 months, fiscal year 2021, FBR collected 3,390 billion versus the target of 3,290. Again, surpassed the target. Sales tax grew to 1,570 billion against target of 1,320 billion, an increase of 19% from the actual target. A collection of custom duty rose to rupees 546 against the target of rupees 492 billion. So you can see that these amounts have actually spiked, and the collections have improved steadily. Income tax returns have reached 2.8 million compared to 2.6 million last year, showing an increase of 8%. So as far as the economic indicators or the targeting is concerned, one can very happily say that the state of Pakistan, the government of Pakistan, FBR and other departments are doing their bit, and the economy is likely to get better. Having said that, now let us talk about the domestic politics. You must have seen the parliamentary session yesterday and day before yesterday, and we saw that all the parties kept on playing politics on religious card. I'm talking particularly about the role of PMLN, which was quite visible, and the former Prime Minister Shahid Khaqan Abbasi actually used very abusive language against the Speaker National Assembly as well. We actually highlighted that issue day before yesterday. We are going to actually do it today as well. And remember that Pakistan People's Party, the party which is thought to be moderator than others, actually decided valiantly to boycott the National Assembly session, where the fear was that it might have to actually oppose the resolution that was tabled. And that was also kind of better thing compared to what happened before, when one of the former prime ministers actually lectured the government of how to be a better Muslim. We are going to talk about these matters. Then there are two other issues which are very interesting. Shehbaz Sharif's bail. Finally, we have seen that after the case went into arbitration, finally three-member bench actually has decided that he can walk free on bail. And that said, there's another very interesting aspect, that is JKT or Jahangir Tareen faction of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, where it was thought that perhaps his group is going to dissociate. So today he spoke about the matter, and he said that from Islamabad, good signals are coming. We are going to talk about all these matters and more in order to help us understand these issues. In the studio, I am joined by Naseem Siddiqui, sir, senior journalist, senior analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ahmed Jawad Saab very kindly joins us in the studio. He is Secretary Information, Central Secretary Information, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, and Ali Rashid representing Pakistan People's Party joins us via Skype. Ali Rashid Saab, thank you very much for being part of the program as well. Let me start with Ahmed Jawad Saab. Ahmed Jawad Saab, at this moment it seems that the crisis that the country was facing is abating, and now finally we are back to politics. Let me ask you, do you think that the government of Pakistan handled the TLP issue, especially in Parliament, the way it should have?
Farrukh, I think people can decide, but what I can present is the sequence of events and how the government handled every stage of this crisis. The first stage was when it came to the knowledge of government, the agencies, that TLP is planning something very big, and it was necessary for the government to react. And when the TLP actually launched their agitation in different parts of the country and blocked the traffic, I think within 24 hours or at the most 48 hours, the traffic all over Pakistan, which was blocked, it was opened, and most of the areas, they were brought to normal routine situation. So I think this was the first success. If we compare it to the past incidents where TLP or any other religious parties who had staged such dharnas to block the traffic, to block the roads. So it was quick action, but it had a cost. And the cost was almost hundreds of policemen who got injured, and dozen of policemen they died. Shaheed, they were shaheed. And so the first stage was, I think, quite well, as well as bringing the rate of the government.
After you actually concluded an agreement with the protesting party, you must have seen the reports in today's paper about demoralization of Punjab police. Do you think that that bit was handled okay?
Farrukh, yes. In our political scenario, it's not the first time that police have been demoralized in the past also, and the reasons are political. When a political decision is taken, when the police is not given that kind of authority to control an angry mob or to control the violence, and obviously the police, they have to pay the cost. And but I think things can be improved, learning from each episode, each incident for Punjab police.
Right. And we are going to talk about that further as well. Naseem Siddiqui Saab, with your permission, let me first bring in Ali Rashid Saab. Ali Rashid Saab, at least when it comes to the people who actually study politics, many of us were actually expecting that People's Party is going to show its moderate side by actually playing a role in this crisis. We saw that the settling of scores and point scoring continued, and in the end, first, Pervez Ashraf Saab, former Prime Minister, actually lectures the government on how to handle TLP and how to prove that they are better Muslims. And then we saw that when it came to the resolution in the Parliament, your party actually boycotted the session. Why so, sir?
Thank you so much for having me here, and so I can give the perspective of my party, People's Party. You see, the thing is, it's a matter of principle which we backed off and left the Assembly boycotting this resolution, which we felt was brought about very late. I think there should have been consensus earlier, prior to actually coming to Parliament. When you were having talks with the TLP, we were not taken on board. When you were actually having that agreement, and then you decided to arrest the leader of TLP, we were not taken on board. Then after that, you decided to do a crackdown on TLP, we were not taken on board. So many innocent lives were taken. So many people ended up so much loss to property. It gave a very negative image of Pakistan internationally. And after all is said and done, now you want to come into Parliament, and that too you bring a resolution from a private member, not from the government, from a private member who brings about this resolution, and you want us to be part of this? Well, things don't work like this.
No, hang on. I'm glad that you have actually pointed out two aspects. One, that finally government actually brought it to the Parliament and you decided to walk out. On the other side, you also mentioned that it was presented by a private member. You realize that the fact that the private member actually presenting it was a kind of mitigation, and the government didn't want to actually formalize it, and by actually asking that the government present it, you're asking it to formalize a process which might actually end up in diplomatic humiliation of the government or state of Pakistan.
So then why bring it in the first place? If this is so it's going to be on pussyfooting, and you cannot come forward and put your foot down and bring things into Parliament and have a discussion on it. If the government doesn't have that political will or that kind of will to make a I mean, look at the stuff which has happened. I mean, just because a member of your party, a private member, that also belongs to PTI. Why hide behind that? We just felt that, and also when resolutions are they're brought in with consensus. We were not taken on board. I feel when there's a national action plan in place, and it's the law. It's part of Parliament.
See, that is the point. And Ali Rashid sir, when I come back to you, I'm going to actually ask about national action plan as well, because your party and its leader actually played very important role in that consensus that was built in 2014. But allow me to actually come back to the studio. Naseem Siddiqui sahab very patiently is waiting for his turn. Naseem Siddiqui sahab, you have listened to the government's perspective and oppositions. Can I say that while the government of the time has to actually manage these crises, and we have seen successive governments are usually out of their capacity to handle these crises, the opposition usually either cops out or then, like PMLN, just jumps into political opportunism.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for inviting. First of all, I would like to compare the situation like it was happened in USA for Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
That was for just one black person, and you can see that the USA couldn't handle that one.
Okay.
Whereas the situation in Pakistan was totally different. It was about Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, for whom God has made this world, and we all love him a lot. So situation was very critical. But I think that government has handled it nicely as compared to the previous situations in Pakistan. You have seen that Dharna of Khadim Rizvi was handled nicely. Then when Maulana Fazlur Rahman came with a Dharna at Peshawar Road, the negotiations went
nicely?
on. Yeah, it went off.
Okay.
So basically no damages were made. So I think
this time there were damages. I mean, you're telling me that six policemen didn't die?
In the Fazlur Rahman Dharna, there was no damage. It was a quiet. So government tried its best to solve the problem, because it was really a big problem, and then they dealt it and they went for the negotiations, and in the end the things has been settled down. But in the PMLN and the People's Party, when they were saying that why this matter has not been brought into the National Assembly, but when it was brought there, what happened? What was the role of the PMLN? And even People's Party, who used to say the democracy is the best revenge, or Parliament is the supreme forum. So they ran away from there. They should have come over there. Whatever their grievances was, they should have come to the Parliament, and they should raise their grievances in front of the Speaker.
Do you think that while you have pointed out that the issue was so big, because it was associated with the name of the Honorable Son of the last Prophet of Islam, what People's Party did was better or advisable, because had it come to the parliament, it would have taken a stand, and if it were confronted the resolution, everybody was going to accuse it of abandoning religion. While it didn't come, we only can say that it was a cop-out.
Yeah, it looks like that, but basically they ran away from that situation because they are part of the parliament, and parliament was going to solve the problem or give some suggestions, where People's Party didn't took any part, which they should have taken.
Now the question is, since you say that very nicely it was handled, right? Do you think that the crisis is over?
No, crisis is never over in Pakistan.
I'm talking about this particular one.
This is not over at the moment, but they have to think. They have to go to the grassroots problem, because the problem lies in Europe, and they have to tackle it over there, because that's not the problem in Pakistan. Nobody can.
Who is going to tackle it there?
The government, the opposition, the parliamentarians. They should go to their in group.
You live in your home. I live in mine. I can control how I behave within my home. How can I control what you are doing in your home?
No, we can just go to Europe. The parliamentarians, the journalists, they can go there, they can initiate this problem, they can tell the people, they can tell the governments. If that thing never happens over there again, then it will be controlled in Pakistan.
Okay, so otherwise if they keep on doing something, if responsible, we are going to hurt ourselves.
If somebody says
we are going to hurt ourselves.
But you can see that...
I'm sorry, Ahmed Jawad sahab, when I asked him this question, whether the crisis is over or not, I just noticed that you looked at me at that time. Let me ask you, is it over?
Farrukh, the crisis is not yet over, and it is very much on the wall. That is why when I started explaining, I said the first stage. I mean, and I also mentioned the cost we had to pay, very unfortunate cost. So we cannot just put the things under the carpet. Everything is black and white. Everybody knows the cost we had to pay and what was the situation on the roads. But at the same time, I also would like to say that comparatively, the government had been able to bring back the rate of the government and maintain the rate in a very short period of time.
Can you clarify whether TLP is going to continue as a proscribed organization, or this ban is going to be through due process lifted soon?
Farrukh, the basis of banning this organization is according to the constitution. I mean, if any political party becomes a militant party and they are threat to the public and the private property and to the people, I mean, then it's not a political party and it cannot be allowed to do that. I mean, it's the law which determines. It's not my choice. It's not the choice of a political party. It's the choice of the law that how such groups who become militants, how they have to be handled.
Yeah, but Sheikh Rashid Saab yesterday speaking to the media explained the process that there is going to be a committee, then it will actually decide, but the government of Pakistan will actually recommend that the ban be lifted. This was one aspect. Then he also announced that out of 700 and something, 630 people were released who were, actually detained under MPO or fourth schedule as well. Do you think that this is going to build morale among the Punjab police, that the people who were attacking them have been released and they are there?
I think a professional police is not seeking revenge.
Okay.
A professional police is meant to bring the peace in the city, on the roads and the streets.
Right.
So yes, they have sacrificed, and they must be hurt what they have been treated by a group of people. But at the same time, they might find satisfaction in the fact that there is a peace within 2 days or 3 days of this crisis. So I wouldn't say that they must be demoralized because they could not take the revenge.
I'm not talking about revenge. I caught you, or you caught me, and then I walked scot-free, and then I come to you and tease you that look, You had actually arrested me, and you couldn't detain me for long.
But I think nobody teased the police. Yes, the outcome of releasing those people.
You realize?
I don't think so. They came back and they were teasing.
No, they haven't. But you know that how those 11 cops were actually kidnapped from a police station. So those people were attacked, right? And there was an offense. The question at this moment, I think that when you listen to the Prime Minister, he is very clear about these things. When we listen to the Information Minister, again he is very clear. But when you listen to the Interior Minister, there are questions which are being asked. Should they be asked or not?
Question can always be asked, you know, whether we are sitting here, whether we are sitting in a press conference, the people have right to ask, media has right to ask questions. So, I mean, that cannot be discouraged. And the question which you have asked, basically, I would rather call it as, or label it as a conclusion of negotiation.
Okay.
That once you are sitting for negotiation, obviously everything is not what you are desiring. The negotiation means that you have to satisfy the opposite party, and simultaneously you try to reach to a consensus or a resolution. So that's the success of the negotiation. So nobody goes in the negotiation that once I go there, I'll bring back whatever I want. So obviously this has been done with a, I would say, pinch of salt. That you are arresting some people who were responsible for damaging public property and hurting people, injuring people, killing people, and then you have to release them. But we must understand that we wanted to prevent any further aggravation or damage, and to cool down the sentiments. You know, the sentiments were very intense.
Yeah, and that actually worries me, because there was a time when we thought that PTI had the kind of control over emotions that it could actually drive the narrative or control the narrative. For the first time or second, I think, after Asia Bibi episode, we felt that your government, your party was struggling. And I'm going to come back to you, because there are questions about national election plan. And why is it that it goes into hiding every time there is such a kind of situation? It is precisely for such things that national election plan was envisioned. Ali Rashid Saab, your party, because Asif Ali Zardari Saab played a very critical role in putting together or actually building consensus when national election plan was being cobbled together. Your party had to show leadership and stand up to these forces, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Your party leadership keeps on pointing that the government made a mistake. First it clamped down, then it actually relaxed, and before clamped down there was some kind of concession earlier as well. This is precisely what your party, when it was in government, used to do. I mean, I remember in Sabat, you went for agreement first, and then you launched the operation. Similarly, when Salman Taseer was killed, other people were killed, your party would, Shahbaz Bhatti was killed. At that time, everybody would disappear from television screen. So this is exactly an issue of political class. Why do you think that you keep on focusing on technicality rather than doing the job that people of Pakistan have given you by virtue of being a liberal or moderate party?
We prefer to do the job right instead of not doing anything at all, because you see, the incidents which you're quoting happened prior to the NAP coming into being. The whole point of the National Action Plan was to get a bunch of people together, the parliament, the law enforcement agencies, the intelligence agencies were well equipped to deal with these kinds of situations, and we came up with the SOP. And then we got this National Action Plan passed through Parliament. So whatever happened prior to that, I'm not going to talk about that. But now, since we have the law, which just needs to be implemented, the government had no authority to go ahead without the opposition without other agencies. They could not be negotiating with these people. There's a SOP that if a situation like this arises, you get everybody on board. And the consensus, you have to build consensus, and then you take it to Parliament, and then you decide if you want to have negotiation and talks with these people, and then the way forward after that. So our bone of contention and our entire issue was that nobody knew. The government is not equipped. They don't have negotiators. They don't have the intel. They don't have other things. They need everybody on the same page, right?
No, but I understand. Hang on. I understand that you are saying that many of the incidents that I pointed out never, Ali Rashid Sahab, I understand that you are saying that many of the things I pointed out happened before a national action plan. But let me remind you how many people or leaders your party has lost. Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto was assassinated by terrorists. We have talked about Salman Taseer, Shahbaz Bhatti. Other people have suffered. So your party, hang on, sir. Sir, hang on, sir, allow me to actually finish, and then I'm coming to you, sir. The humble submission is that your party was supposed to go to the Parliament and stand up to anyone who was harassing the lawmakers and the state of Pakistan. That didn't happen. First, before the government tabled this resolution, Pervez Ashraf Sahab goes to the Parliament, and there he lectures the government. What you did, let me remind you, the then Prime Minister banned YouTube in Pakistan back then, and it was not restored for 2 years, sir.
Look, I think if you're going to live in the past, then I think that's something else. I think we can discuss the issue at hand, how things are mishandled. Nobody can. You can say how PMLN may have mishandled some situation back in the day. You can talk about how PPP, but that will not change how wrong and how badly the situation was handled. And I can't see the screen, but the gentleman who said it was nicely handled, please, I mean, I have no words to say how was it nicely handled. People died, the roads were blocked. Internationally, we were given, the image of a very extremist state. The police, law enforcement agencies, the people from there were getting kidnapped. People who were supposed to protect us were not safe themselves. And you're telling me this was nicely handled? Please.
Right. It was his point of view. He's entitled to actually say, and then I questioned him. But sir, before you accuse me of living in the past, my question was not about past. It was just qualifying that your party was supposed to show some moral leadership. We didn't see that coming from your party, or any other party for that matter, did we?
Look, we kept the entire exercise, I don't know if you were following the media or the news or not, but as things were progressing, we kept saying that this should have been discussed in the Parliament. But nobody, look at the timeline of all the statements which were passed from my party leadership. We kept saying, what is going on? What is going on in the country? Why aren't we coming to Parliament and discussing this? And it was a very simple thing. When they were having talks with TLP, they could have just said, okay, we can't do anything. We will take this matter to the National Assembly. We'll discuss it and we'll come back to you. And this all could have been avoided. But did that...
Right, Ali Rashid Sahab, evidently you can debate the past, but I cannot. I don't have the permission to, but Naseem Siddiqui sir, first of all, it was questioned that you actually said it was nicely handled. It was not. Qualified. Answer.
No, it was my opinion because I've seen that how the chaos was going on in Pakistan, and it could have been carried on for more weeks or for months even. Yeah. But it was then nicely handled and it was stopped at
so
that.
So what you are saying
time.
Is whatever.
Yeah.
It ended okay.
It ended nicely, because both the parties.
I will call
agreed.
it okay, not nicely.
Okay, you can say it's okay that both parties agreed and the situation came back in Pakistan.
Okay.
It came back to normal.
Earlier, you used your bully pulpit. We all journalists have that, right? You use that bully pulpit to actually praise the ruling party and then criticize the opposition. Let me ask about the permanent opposition party, that is Pakistan's media pundits. Every media pundit, instinctively when it comes to religion, positions themselves in a way that they are never sympathetic, and I'm saying it for past 20 years, never sympathetic with the state of Pakistan, always sympathetic with the miscreants. Why is it?
Because I think they have got some fear in the back of their mind that there would be a repercussion or there would be a reaction.
No. I give you example because it wasn't happening on television. I'm talking about YouTube channel. One anchor, his hair is ruffled. He's sitting in the vehicle and then saying, "Oh, for God's sake, Prime Minister, do something. They are doing this, that, the other thing," right? And he's complaining about the police, which is being beaten at the very time.
Yeah, because they want the support of the miscreants as well. They want to increase their fanship.
Okay.
Yeah, because
friendship with the miscreants.
With the miscreants as well.
So why don't they join their channels rather than the Pakistani channels? Because you're talking about the state of Pakistan here being attacked by certain individuals.
Yeah, but they want to be on the both sides.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the reason. But I think that we should
Both sides?
but both sides, miscreants and the government as well.
Why is it? We are living in a country called Pakistan. Pakistan is 96% Muslim population, right? Everyone is Muslim. I'm Muslim. You are Muslim. He's Muslim. He is Muslim. And we don't have to qualify. But every time I ask you a question, you'll first talk about you'll try to prove how pious Muslim you are. Why is it so? Out of fear?
Farrukh, there is a lot of division in the religion as well. You have seen that there are too many parties and too many things keeps going on in Pakistan. You can say the firqas as well, yeah? We're pointing each other.
But nobody is talking about firqa.
No, but I'm just saying in my answer that I'm pointing about you that you are not a proper Muslim. You're saying I'm not a proper Muslim.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, no, you didn't. See, I'm just giving an example. It's God who will decide that I'm a right Muslim or not. I'm a practicing Muslim or not. So this is a big difference in the society at the moment.
No, but my concern, these two questions that I asked you, and I'm going to ask a third question as well. The way media actually behaves, first, sympathy lies with the other side. B, every time for me and other media anchors and journalists, you raise the bar of proving ourselves a good Muslim by actually performing there and proving that this has to be done, right? Third thing, while I'm actually listening to everything that is going on and the way journalists behave, all of a sudden everybody says this is a very sensitive issue. Of course it is, because you are making it to be. Otherwise, we are all Muslims. Why would anybody deliberately hurt anybody's sentiments? So where is the national action plan in what we are doing?
Yeah, it should be, because as I said earlier, that we need to go to the root cause of this problem, because every time something happens, people, they have got a right to protest, but the protest in the right way. But the miscreants...
Finally, you have come to the other grassroots. Earlier, you were going to France. Now you have come to our own grassroots.
We have got problems as well here. We have to solve both problems here as well and there as well.
You can do whatever you can within your own home. You can advocate there, but here you can actually bring about change. Ahmed Jawad Sahab, National Action Plan. There was consensus at the time because terrorists had killed our children in Peshawar. After that, there was agreement that there will be a counter narrative against the extremists of all sorts. And every time there has been a national crisis involving a religion, it seems that their narrative is ruling the airwaves and our social media. And the state of Pakistan's counter-narrative is nowhere. Why so?
Farrukh, before coming to the National Action Plan, if you allow me just a brief comment on which was a very pertinent question from your side, that why media is always found on the miscreant side. So I think it is a global trend. When there is a black movement, George Floyd incident, the entire media of America would be found standing next to that black movement.
Except Fox.
Maybe one odd, maybe in Pakistan also there is one odd. So, but generally, media is, I think, is inclined it's a natural tendency of media to stay with the public sentiment. So they
Miscreants are public now? Or what you are saying is that Pakistani media or media all over the world digs bad boys?
Farrukh, when there is a black movement after the George Floyd incident,
but they were not miscreants.
From the state perspective, the people who are damaging the property, they are miscreants.
Right.
But at the same time, the media would take them as protesters on a very unfortunate incident.
Yeah.
So here in Pakistan also, obviously, people who are blocking the traffic, people who are attacking public property, they are miscreants from the state point of view.
Yeah, but
the media.
But the first, let go of the first two qualifications, right? Attacking public property or state resources. I'm talking about attacking public personnel.
Yeah.
And I'm not merely talking about
definitely
people who are within them and policing them, raiding a police station and, kidnapping officials.
Yeah,
so they become actually, this is called terrorism, right?
Even killing them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is no doubt about that. That is why the government had to take some very tough measures and to bring back the writ. And I think this is one thing which perhaps can go to the credit of the government, that under a very difficult circumstances, the government took this bold decision of taking a tough stance on it, a tough action on that. And now coming back to the national action plan. I recall in the 70s, Germany also had a terrorism wave, and they were also helpless because there were a series of terror incidents, one after the other. And finally, they made a national action plan. And you know what was the spirit of that national action plan? The spirit was that the entire intelligence agencies of the country, whether military, whether civil, all law enforcement agencies, they were all brought together into one pool and reporting to one head of that national action plan,
right,
and who was allowed to conduct the national action plan. And they were sitting in a room, the main decision makers, all the heads of the agencies.
And it didn't happen here.
And the telephones were not allowed. And for 24 hours, nobody was allowed to go. They were sleeping there. They were having all actions and everything. And after 24 hours, I mean, they were able to control. They were able to apprehend, they catch terrorists. So it was a very successful incident. Just taking, a lesson out of that. In our country, the problem is that when we are talking about national action plan, it needs to have the capacity of the institution who is going to conduct that national action plan.
Right.
So when the government, the state has to make a national action plan, then it has to be civilian institutions.
Right.
On the other hand, when we exactly sit down to execute or talk about that, we don't find that capacity.
Okay. No, but
Just one comment.
my question was not basically about policing per se or controlling terrorism. Mine was about the narrative. It seemed that whatever you open a tap and the narrative of the other party is coming, not the states. Right? And this worries me because usually the state of Pakistan has more resources to counter the propaganda of terrorists. When you actually came up with the National Action Plan, eventually we defeated the narrative of TTP, which was actually earlier was being projected by these media johnnies as the estranged brothers and more righteous wronged people, right? And then we defeated that narrative. Why can't we do it now?
Farrukh, I tend to agree with you, and the example is that Zarb-e-Azab, Raddul Fasad, these are two national action plans taken by the military, but those were conducted in a way that the narrative of the nation, the narrative of the country was with the state.
Okay.
You can recall.
And that was because the most powerful branch of the government
Yeah.
actually was taking an action, right? So we didn't
My
do
same,
anything.
my same question that we don't have the civilian institutions
Right.
who have the capacity and the resources to take up such national
Right.
action
I'm
plans.
told, sir, that we have run out of time. Ahmed Jawad, sir, thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Naseem Siddiqui, sir, thank you very much. Ali Rashid, sir, thank you very much. You came to the program for the first time, but thank you very much. You represented your party. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. We had to talk about many other things, but enough talk is going on the media about Jahangir Tareen's politics and how Shahbaz Sharif's release tomorrow, day after tomorrow, might actually mean that there is some kind of indication in the wind that perhaps someone is correct or someone is not. But these matters must be close to everybody's heart. This country has suffered a lot. 80,000 people have lost their lives combating terrorism. Last night we were reminded that terrorists can still, although in the margins, but they can still attack the people of Pakistan. That should actually remind us that we have to work on de-radicalization, because in neighboring Afghanistan, situation is changing. America is going to pull out, and after that, we don't know what kind of environment exists there. So at this moment, it is very important that all the stakeholders and all the influencers actually focus on National Action Plan, particularly the narrative building exercise. Otherwise, we will keep on repeating what we have been suffering in the past. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.